Marvel World Unleashed, Dylan resurrects ancient gods from myth. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 51. In a dark alley. A man dressed entirely in black is lying unconscious in a garbage heap. He also wore a black hood on his head, but this hood did not cover his face completely, but only hugged the upper part. Blood slowly flowed from his abdomen and solidified into a bloody scab. On his unwrapped face, it was purple and blue. Obviously, this man was taught a terrible lesson. If no one had noticed him, perhaps the man would have died here from the low temperature caused by bleeding. But luckily, a figure appeared in front of him. The figure emerged from the void, creating a slight ripple of air. Liang looked helplessly at Matt lying in front of him, and couldn't help but sigh for Matt's situation. Matt, you're the worst superhero I've ever seen." Liang's soft teasing was inaudible to no one. With a flick of his hand, he watched the muzzle of Matt's body slowly heal. The bullets in it were also taken out by an invisible force. In the blink of an eye, Matt's face in a coma was much better. "Young people, it's good to like to punish evil and promote good, but you have to do what you can." Leon's impression of Matt is still very good. Among so many Marvel's heroes, Daredevil can be said to be quite good in all aspects. Whether it is from self-character or attitude towards the enemy. But there is a problem. His strength is really a bit weak. Liang stood in place and thought for a while, the corners of his mouth slightly hooked. Since he can make up the Cthulhu mythos, so why can't he play one of these roles? According to his current rank of strength, it was more than enough to act as an old dominator. He stretched out his finger and pointed at the unconscious Matt in front of him. A glimmer slowly floated out from the tips of his fingers, and that glimmer slowly melted after falling on Matt's forehead. Matt, who was in a coma, noticed nothing. After doing all this, Liang's body melted into the void again and disappeared here. Once again, only the unconscious Matt was left in the alley. Just then, a stray dog from nowhere walked into the alley. When it saw Matt, it stepped forward to lick it. The wetness and touch on his face made Matt wake up gradually. His movements made the stray dog run away in fear, and Matt covered his forehead and sat up on the garbage heap. "I remember I was shot." "Well?" Matt suddenly realized something was wrong with his body. He stroked his abdomen. There should have been a gun hole there. But now it's as smooth as ever. There are no signs of injury at all. What the hell is going on here? When Matt felt extremely shocked in his heart, his hand suddenly touched a pointed metal object. It's smooth, but not big. He immediately realized that it was a bullet that had been shot into his body. This shocked Matt even more. The fact that he was shot is not an illusion, and now there is a mysterious person who helped him heal his injuries. And this means of healing. Matt had the legendary magic in his mind. He doesn't think modern medicine has any means to restore the place where he was hit by a gunshot wound. Matt swallowed. He thought he had superpowers that were amazing enough. But now the world has shown him a more bizarre side. A mysterious man with strange abilities. Mathis couldn't figure out why the other party saved him. But there's one thing Matt can preliminarily affirm. The other party is certainly not malicious. Realizing this, Matt planned to put the matter aside for the time being. Now he has to go home and take a shower to clear his mind before thinking about his amazing experience. He got up from the garbage heap, completely free of the soreness of the battle. This made Matt even more grateful and amazed at the power of the mysterious man. Then he walked slowly in the direction of his house. Liang, who returned to the bookstore, suddenly realized something. If he makes someone believe in the existence of the old dominator and so on, should he gain influence points? According to the rules of the previous system, it does not allow Liang to take coercive methods such as mental distortion to forcibly change people's cognition in order to gain influence points. But this time Leon's approach to Matt was not some kind of coercive method, it was a soft method that was biased towards suggestion, and he also gave Matt the opportunity to choose. If Matt chooses to give up, then what Leon gave to the other party is useless. It all depends on Matt's heart. This can't always be considered coercive, can it? Liang appealed to the system the doubts in his heart. The system gave the answer after a moment of silence. For the characters whose host takes non-coercive means and affects it, when it is not involved in this fabrication, it will not be counted in the final settlement, and only when it is involved in a fabrication, its own influence points will be included in the final settlement of the fabrication. In addition, for the characters affected by the host by non-coercive means, the host must ensure that no mental coercion is taken during the period, and at the same time, the other party must be given the right to double choice, and must not be induced by a single choice. After hearing the system's reply, the corners of Liang's mouth slowly widened. His actions were systematically acknowledged, although the system attaches restrictions to it. But, so what? The right to choose? Many times, human choices can be manipulated invisibly. For Liang, they were destined to embark on the path that had already been arranged. Then they will provide Liang with more influence points. However, rather than additional influence point acquisition, Liang is more interested in the different roles he will play in the middle. He won't end up in person, but he will conjure up and get involved in it. Even if it's just an avatar, it's enough to enjoy the fun process in the middle. He suddenly thought of Nyarlathotep. In the original writings, he is billions of avatars, creating chaos in countless worlds. At this time, he is a bit like this lazy god. Episode 52. Matt got home and took a simple shower, then sat down in his room and began to rethink his battle today. Today he became involved with a group of arms traffickers suspected of reselling arms without permission. The opponent's firepower is quite strong. Even if Matt has senses beyond ordinary people, his movements still have no limit beyond ordinary people. In this case, injuries could not be more normal. Oh, it's better to strengthen your workout. Matt sighed silently. He is also sometimes helpless with the limitations of his own body. If his body could keep up with his senses, he would have the competence to tackle his enemies unharmed in today's hail of bullets. But alas, this kind of thinking can only be dreamed. After the resumption of the battle, Matt once again thought about the mysterious person who saved him today. The shock in his heart has not dissipated to this day. If yes, he really wanted to meet the mysterious man. Since the other party can completely recover his wounds, it is likely that the other party has a way to strengthen his body. After all, the other party has such a magical ability. But despite thinking so, reality made Matt feel powerless. Where should he go to find the mysterious man? Matt sighed again. Then he sat up cross-legged. This is his meditation preparation pose. Through meditation, he can exercise his concentration and the sharpness of his senses. Since you can't let your body break through the limit, it's better to exercise your senses. That's what Matt had on his mind. Soon, he entered meditation. His spirit sits peacefully in a void. Everything around him could not attract the slightest attention from him. His breathing became long and slow, like an old turtle. This is Matt's daily meditative state. But today, it's a little different. A little yellow light suddenly lit up in Matt's mental space. When he noticed the light, it instantly turned into an ocean, covering Matt's spiritual space. Then a figure in a yellow robe appeared in front of Matt. Matt had never seen something physical in mental space, but in this moment he did. It was an existence that exuded infinite mystery and grandeur. He seemed to be a god standing between the stars and seas, and the depth and vastness from the universe shocked and speechless Matt. His body size is obviously the size of ordinary people, but it makes Matt feel incomparably small. Matt stared at the other, an inexplicable desire and obsession urging him to get closer to the back. It was as if the truth of everything in the world was on the back in front of it. When Matt tried to get close to each other, suddenly the distance between the back and Matt turned into an infinite sea of stars, and there were countless light years in between. This distance that makes people lose sight of the head seems to tell the gap between Matt and the other party. But the weird thing is, even so far away, Matt could still clearly see the back of the figure in yellow. His figure does not seem to change because of distance. Matt once again tried to step on this infinite sea of stars to get close to each other, but the next moment he suddenly woke up from meditation. Matt gasped for air from the nervousness and disbelief. Everything that Fong Kai felt in the spiritual space gave Matt an indescribable sense of oppression. Unconsciously at the time, this oppression is now manifesting. It left Matt breathless. After a long time, Matt finally resumed his normal breathing. He couldn't help but ask himself, who the hell is that? What did he see? Why did the other party appear in his spiritual space? At this point, Matt had countless questions in his mind, but none of them could be answered. He couldn't help but think of the mysterious person he had met tonight. Could it be that the wounds on his body were healed by the man in yellow? Just when his heart was surging, he suddenly touched a strange stone. He had no way of knowing what the stone was, so he could only think of it as a stone. He relied on his own touch to judge the shape and size of the stone, and so on. Gradually, he constructed the form of an object in his mind. It was a rounded stone with irregular edges, the size of half a palm that could be easily held, and strange lines were depicted on the surface of the stone. Just when Matt was this stone, he felt a coolness coming from the stone. Then a mental fluctuation passed into his mind. Immediately, Matt's face suddenly changed. Then he looked as if he saw something evil and threw the stone in his hand. But he finally slowly withdrew his hand that he threw out. He held the stone and fell into a long silence. Episode 53. Liang, who was sitting in the bookstore, watched Matt's reaction throughout the process. From the smile on his lips, you can see that he is not surprised by Matt's reaction. After all, everything Matt is experiencing right now is what he created. If anyone who knew the myth of the grammar could see what Matt was holding in his hand at this time, they would exclaim in surprise. It's a yellow seal. It was the mark of the King of Yellow, one of the incarnations of the old dominator Asta. The possession of the yellow seal means that the person has stepped into the edge of madness and evil, and it also means that he has the qualifications to become a believer of the King of Yellow. When the yellow seal is activated, the terrifying King of Yellow, who cannot see his face, will send his blessings. But the conditions for this activation are indispensable for blood and soul. It is also because of this that Matt wants to throw it out after sensing the fluctuation of the information transmitted to him by the yellow seal. Because for Matt, this condition is tantamount to a break in his principle. As a daredevil who fights in the night, every enemy knows that he has the principle of do not kill. This is something Matt has been holding on to since he became Daredevil. While it sounds ridiculous to some, for Matt it's important. But the reason why Matt chose to give up throwing in the end was because he also knew from the information fluctuations of the yellow seal how powerful the blessing of the King of Yellow close was. He has been longing for a breakthrough in his own flesh. Now this opportunity is in front of him. But it clashed with the principles he had always upheld. The boredom between the two collisions made Matt completely sleepless tonight. Looking at the tangled face on Matt's face, Liang's smiling expression did not change in the slightest. There was a little more expectation and curiosity in his eyes. Matt, what would you choose in the end? Liang whispered to himself. His actions tonight are certainly full of bad fun and fiddling with Matt's life. But on the other hand, doesn't this give Matt a chance to become stronger? And if you want to become stronger, you need to pay a price. He has been kind enough to Matt, and all Matt needs to do is break his own principles. If it is someone else, Liang may give the other party a harsher price. Moreover, the image he played in Matt's mind was the King of Yellow, incarnated by the old dominator Asta. This is not a kind image. Following, Tony officially began translating the Codex Nakhet. He put on his heavily armed anti-mental distraction equipment and sat down at his desk. He is now in excellent shape, and the curiosity in his heart is filling his entire chest. He couldn't wait to pry into the knowledge that the ISIS called taboo. Jarvis, pass me the first picture. Yes, sir. Then Tony began translating the pictures taken of the pages of the Nakhet Codex. The shield experience is still useful. The combination of protective equipment plus picture and image translation has indeed greatly reduced the spiritual impact of the Nakhet Codex. As the translation deepened, Tony's face became more serious and solemn. Because if what is recorded in this ancient book is true, then there are too many secrets hidden in this world. At this time, he suddenly felt a burst of vertigo. The appearance of this feeling made Tony immediately stop the translation at hand. He took off his anti-mental distraction equipment and walked to the window to look at the sea. As time passed, the vertigo that made him feel sick gradually subsided. Phew, this job is really extraordinary. It seems that you have to work for a while and rest for a while. Tony speculates that this is the influence of Codex Nakhet. This surprised him and worried him. Is what is recorded in this book true? He looked at the sparkling sea in the distance, and his mind remembered the anecdotes of Atlantis mentioned in the Nakhet Codex and the history of the continent. Stories that were once considered fiction and myths by humans are now being reconstructed in Tony's mind. Tony, who had experienced all those things before, could no longer show the same disdain for these ethereal and dreamy stories as before. He had to admit it. He himself developed a certain belief in these things. Then he thought of what Fong had just seen from the Nakhet Codex. It is a text that records the gods sleeping in the deep sea and the terrible beings that inhabit the shadows behind this world. Once upon a time, he also told Doc that he would never believe these myths. But now, he saw the statue of Cthulhu with his own eyes. I also experienced the hallucinations that occurred because of the statue. These myths unknowingly weighed heavily in Tony's heart. Thinking of this, Tony let out a long sigh. At this moment, he had a little regret in his heart. Maybe he should have listened to Doc. He shouldn't have translated the book. But it was already late, he had already reached the edge of the abyss of knowledge. The road back has been cut off, and all that remains is to carefully complete this path of taboos and secrets. Episode 54. A month later, Tony came to S.H.I.E.L.D. with a translated portion of the Codex Nakhet. His state is much worse than a month. Although his clothes were still bright, the exhaustion revealed by those eyes could not be falsified. Fine bloodshot streaks spread across the whites of his eyes, making him look a little oozing. Nick Fury couldn't help but look pale when he saw his appearance, and just when he wanted to say something, Tony interrupted the other party. Needless to say, I know for myself the way I look now, which is the result of my recent translation of that book, and it turns out that even wearing protective gear is gradually affected by it. There was an unconcealable weakness between Tony's words. Nick Fury couldn't imagine what Tony had gone through. He patted Tony on the shoulder and said very seriously and respectfully. Hard work on you, Tony. Oh, it's better to be practical than verbal thanks. Well, if you need anything, just tell me. As long as I can provide it, I can give it all. Tony didn't expect his casual joke to get such an answer. This made him a little stunned for a while, but he reacted immediately. Okay, then you just wait, I'll open my mouth then. He laughed. Nick Fury smiled and nodded. Then the two got down to business. Tony opened the alloy box in his hand, and neatly arranged the English version of the Nakhet Codex, which had been translated. This is 1/10 of the translated text of that book, and it is the result of my best efforts to translate. Tony said seriously. This is true. The time he spent on the Nakhet text this month averaged 12 hours a day. But even so, his progress has slowed visibly with the naked eye. This is not that he is lazy, but with the deepening of translation, his spirit and brain are depleted more and more intensely. In the beginning, he could translate several pages a day. But later, it could take him days to translate a page. As it goes. If you want to translate the Nakhet Codex completely, at least it is a unit in years. Nick Fury was not upset that there was only 1/10 of the text. He believed Tony's words, and since the other party said his best, then he did not doubt it. And Tony's haggard appearance at this time cannot be fake. 1/10 of the text is enough, thanks to you, Tony. Just do my part. Tony said. When Nick Fury heard this, a few strands of surprise and praise appeared in Tony's eyes. After all, this kind of words were inaudible to Tony Stark before. Okay, you let your people quickly investigate this text. Nick Fury nodded and called Hill. Coulson has been lying in the hospital since he was shot in the last incident, and the current secretary next to Nick Fury is mainly Hill. The other party, like Coulson, is also Nick Fury, who also believes. He handed the alloy box containing the translated text to the other party and gave a few more instructions, and then turned away for convenience. After waiting for him to leave, Tony asked. What did the UN gang say about the monster last time? How else can I say it? It's nothing more than accusing us of reckless actions, asking for details, and asking for monster corpses, and other messy things by the way. I see that the vicinity of the ruins has been blocked, and the people are not people from S.H.I.E.L.D., but the people from the United Nations? Yes, the 5 permanent members jointly conduct relic exploration. Gee. Tony smashed his lips, with a bit of irony in his expression. Clearly, he is full of aversion to these curves in politics. How are the inner ghosts in your bureau looking for? Tony asked again. Nick Fury sighed slightly when he heard this. After seeing the other party's reaction, Tony understood. Okay, I see, you keep up the good work, I'm going back. Tony got up on the spot to leave. At this time, Nick Fury stopped the other party and said at the same time. What happened to the palladium poisoning in your chest? Tony's brows furrowed slightly. He didn't remember telling the other party about his palladium poisoning, but when he thought about the other party's occupation, he understood. It's been settled. Your father left you. Well? Have you already solved it? Just as Nick Fury was speaking, Tony's sudden opening made Nick Fury stunned. Yes, I got away from the ISIS to save me, but what do you mean by what you just said? What did my father leave me? In the face of Tony's question, Nick Fury did not answer immediately, and he felt a sense of frustration in his heart at this time. How could he show himself that it was so difficult? A moment later. That is, my father left me with a plan that could only be done by me, but what it is, you don't know, right? Tony asked, looking at Nick Fury in front of him. The other nodded. A few thoughts flashed in Tony's eyebrows, and after not thinking of anything useful, he said goodbye to Nick Fury and left. Nick Fury looked at the distant Tony, and his heart was also sighing unconsciously. It would be surprising to let the world know about Tony Stark's current changes. He knew he couldn't be wrong. Worthy of him. Episode 55. New York, Brooklyn. Leon watched Tony leave S.H.I.E.L.D. and thought to himself. Maybe it's time to end this fabrication. So far, the Islamic civilization he created has succeeded in convincing Nick Fury, Tony, and others At the same time, with the Codex Neket, it once again deepened the trust in Cthulhu in the hearts of Nick Fury and others, and successfully refreshed Tony's worldview. If this continues, it seems that there will be no new gains. After all, he didn't create anything else either. So, he said silently in his heart. System, end this fabrication. This is followed by a system prompt. Ding, this fabrication has ended, and the results are now officially settled. Settlement. This fabrication investment, 2W points of influence. The output of this fabrication, 214 ordinary people believe in the existence of the great race of Is, which is converted to 214 influence points. 6 important people believe in the existence of the great race of Is. Nick Fury's degree of belief is 100%, which translates to 100,000 impact points. Natasha. 100%, fold 300,000 points. Clint 100%, fold 200,000 points. Fayer 100%, fold 100,000 points. Maria Hill 100%, fold 100,000 points. Tony Stark. 100%, fold 1,000,000 points. Ancient One 100%, fold 300,000 points. At the same time, because this fabrication involves the last fabrication object Cthulhu, further settlement will be carried out, and the cumulative superposition settlement will be carried out for important people involved in the previous fabrication. Nick Fury believes in Cthulhu by 60%, which translates to 60,000 influence points. Natasha. 80%, fold 240,000 points. Clint 82%, fold 164,000 points. Fayer 90%, fold 90,000 points. Tony Stark. 75%, fold 750,000 points. Ancient One 20%, fold 60,000 points. Total output impact points are 346, 4214 points. Input-output ratio, 173 times. Comprehensive evaluation, A. Get an A-level evaluation reward chest. This fabrication can obtain the spiritual projection ability of the fabricated image, Great Race of Is. Because it is an A-level evaluation, there is no additional reward. This fabrication can get 1% of the strength of the fabricated image Cthulhu. Because it is an A-level evaluation, there is no additional reward. Please keep up the good work. Looking at the input-output ratio and systematic evaluation this time, Liang was a little helpless. This time, the fabrication involving the Great Race of Isis was mainly created by him using that special scene building card. From the Isis race to the Flying Hydra, these are the first-order creature creation rights that come with the card. None of this cost his points of influence. The only thing he used his influence points to generate was the Neket Codex. That's where the 20,000 points come in. But even if he saved it like this, he only achieved an A-grade evaluation. This time, the input-output ratio has reached 173 times. You can imagine how precious the SSS level evaluation he received when he first made it up. In addition, the system's prompts also surprised Liang. He didn't expect that this time's fabricated settlement would involve Cthulhu last time. But if you think about it, it's reasonable. After all, Nick Fury and others did not have a full trust in Cthulhu before, and now that the trust has increased, if it is not settled, it is not rigorous enough. But this also gave Liang a reminder. If you want to get a lot of influence points in the future, it is best to link it with the previous fabrication office. If you stack it up like that, you might be able to achieve amazing results. At the same time, Leon had to complain about Nick Fury. This has been made up twice, and this bastard's trust in Cthulhu has just passed the passing line. Isn't that a little too cautious? As for Gui, Liang can still figure out the reason why the other party's low level of trust in Cthulhu. However, for the Great Race of Isis that they made up this time, this group of people all believed it. Liang analyzed the reasons for this phenomenon in his mind. Finally, he concluded. It mainly depends on the existence of specific relics. This is something that really appears in front of one's eyes, and it is indeed difficult to doubt it. And this time, Liang made a long foreshadowing. First through Tony's dreams, then by earthquakes to inadvertently shake out the ruins, and finally the appearance of those flying hydras. These have greatly strengthened the level of trust of Nick Fury and others. Liang pondered for a while, and he decided that when he made it up in the future, he would still focus on specific things. After a brief analysis, Liang focused his attention on the A-grade reward gift box. The last time the SSS level treasure chest gave him something very practical, this time he hopes to give some practical things as well. Open the chest. Liang silently said in his heart, and the system prompt came immediately after. Then the two cards lay quietly in his backpack. Episode 56. Small Scene Construction Card. With this card, a scene with a range of no more than 50 square kilometers can be created. The specific appearance and accompanying rules of the scene can be built and created by the host itself, without carrying creatures, and the scene cannot be manipulated by anyone except the host after it is created, including but not limited to moving, destroying, covering, and other acts. Small Settlement Crit Card. After using this card, you can get the settlement points of the extra multiplier, and the multiplier range, 1 to 3 times. After reading these two cards, Liang smiled helplessly. A-level chests and SSS-level chests are really not a little bit worse. Not to mention the quantity of rewards, a huge gap can be seen simply from this quality. The special scene building card opened by the SSS chest can directly create a scene with a range of 400 kilometers, and there will be creatures and so on. And this time Small Scene card really responds to its name, only scenes. The consolation is that this Small Scene card can also make up its own rules. With this alone, the usefulness of this card has increased several times. As for the other card, it's very simple and crude. When Liang wants to have a big hand one day, this card can come in handy. After looking at these two cards, Liang looked at the cards given by the SSS reward in his backpack. Out-of-order time travel cards, parallel universe traversal cards. The gap is really big. After checking the chest rewards, Leon focused on the abilities obtained by this fabrication. Cthulhu's 1% strength is pretty good, though. But compared to the spiritual projection ability of the great race of Is, there is still a bit of a gap. It can even be said that among the total rewards of this settlement, he values this ability the most. For no other reason. Just because this ability is really a life-saving divine skill. Among the original races of the Grammar family, there are very few races that can survive to the end of the universe. But the great race of Islam did it. Why? It is because of this spirit projection ability. By constantly swapping bodies with other creatures, the great race of Islam successfully witnessed the end of the universe. Spirit projection, the ability of the great race of Is. Through this ability, you can exchange bodies with any creature in the universe whose spiritual power is not stronger than yours, and if you use a certain spacetime device or spacetime rule, you can use this ability to exchange bodies with creatures with mental power weaker than yours on different timelines. After reading the introduction of the spirit projection, Liang's mouth couldn't help but smile. With this ability, in the future, unless there is an enemy who can destroy the entire universe in an instant, no one will be able to completely kill him. If one day he gets the ability to spy on the multiverse. That is, unless the infinite multiverse is destroyed in an instant, it is impossible to completely kill him. But having said that, there are still too many bizarre perverts in the Marvel universe. Liang was still determined to continue. The best life-saving skill is always to keep a low profile. And there is another point to note when using this ability. That is the ability to swap bodies. If it weren't for the last resort and absolute certainty, Liang still didn't want others to control his body. Finally, for this settlement, Liang analyzed which of the 2 influence points obtained and the comprehensive evaluation played a greater role in him. Influence points allow him to create everything for him to make up stories. More is naturally good. But relatively speaking, the treasure chest reward given by the comprehensive evaluation seems to be more directly helpful to Liang. It's like the special scene building card you got for the first reward. If it weren't for this card. According to Leon's 65W influence points at that time, it is not easy to try to concoct a reasonably perfect story of the great race of Is. And if it weren't for that card, it wouldn't be too easy for Liang to get an A-grade evaluation this time. From this point of view, Liang's future fabrication direction should perhaps be aimed at achieving a higher comprehensive evaluation. However, what determines the comprehensive evaluation level is not the number of influence points obtained for each settlement. It's determined by the input-output ratio. This made Liang think. If you want to increase the multiplier of the input-output ratio, you must invest less in advance. In this way, many grand scenes cannot be considered first. Leon's eyes looked at the scene-building card lying in his backpack. He looked at the phrase rules can be freely created by the host and fell into a certain idea. There seems to be a lot of room for play in the middle. So far, Liang's summary of this settlement is all over. He put away the system panel, and then looked out of the bookstore. He had not yet thought about the next fabrication. But after these 2 fabrications, Liang has mastered the experience of fabrication. He believes that his next fabrication will not be too bad. The key is to aim for a higher overall rating. It's night. Jessica was finally liberated from her research tonight. After her mentor announced that her project had passed, Jessica declined the invitation to celebrate from her friends. She left the school quickly, and then went straight to Leon's bookstore. At the moment of seeing Leong, Jessica hung on Leong like a little wildcat and refused to come down. Faced with this situation, what else can Leong do? After simply locking the door, Leong carried Jessica upstairs. A long and intimate exchange followed. After nearly 4 hours, Jessica finally fell into a deep sleep, while Leon's eyes were attracted by another person under the night. It was Matt Murdock, who was fighting the gangsters. Episode 57. It was around 2 o'clock in the morning. In New York, as long as you are a smart person, you will not choose to be near Hell's Kitchen at this time. Because if New York's crime rate can be called the crime capital, that Hell's Kitchen is the center of sin in this crime capital. And at this time, dressed in black, Matt is fighting a group of gangsters. He was extremely strong and agile, and none of the gangsters around him who tried to besiege him could get close to him. Even with a pistol, the gangsters did not have time to aim. Just watch Matt dance the short stick in his hand, 3 times 5, divided by 2, to defeat these gangsters. The gangsters lay on the ground, holding their injured parts and wailing. Matt casually came to one of them, and he tugged on the other party's collar and asked fiercely, "Where's your boss? Tell me." "Under the bar in the second block, please don't kill me." The spineless gangsters cheerfully betrayed their bosses. Matt knocked the other party unconscious hard and said coldly, "I won't kill you, judge your own laws." With that, Matt turned and left the scene. Almost the next second he left, the sound of a police car came from the corner of the far block. The gangsters at the scene showed despair. As for Matt, he had already made his way to the second block of Hell's Kitchen. There are 8 blocks in Hell's Kitchen, and each neighborhood is teeming with crimes big and small. Lately, Matt has been tracking down a gang of gangsters. This gang is the same gang that injured him last time. Matt only found out that they were selling arms privately, but recently he found that the gang was still abducting children. This led Matt to increase his tracking of the gang. Finally, tonight, he learned the location of the boss behind this gang. He's going to take it down tonight. Soon, he came to the bar that the gangster had mentioned earlier. There were tattooed guards everywhere, but that was nothing to Matt. He quickly found the back door of the bar through his perception. After Lisa knocked out the 2 strong men, Matt carefully walked into the back door. The noise of the bar lobby continued to reach Matt's ears. Matt tried to concentrate on his surroundings, and after some searching, he found a passage to the basement. He tiptoed down. The sound of the outside world was gradually blocked by the walls on both sides of the passage. When Matt was completely underground, his keen sense of hearing allowed him to hear the cries of children from the cubicles. Matt immediately ran in the direction of the compartment, but suddenly there was a sound of a pull ring knocking, and Matt immediately turned around, but it was too late. A flash bomb was thrown in front of him. With the instant explosion of the shock bomb, Matt's ears instantly buzzed, followed by gurgling blood flowing from his ears. Keen senses bring convenience to Matt, but also disadvantages to him. He tried to fight in pain, but was soon knocked out by a muffled stick from the back of his head. When he woke up again, he was already tied to a chair layer by layer. "Ha ha ha ha, Daredevil, why are you so stupid? Why didn't it occur to you that this is a trap we deliberately set against you?" The voice of the gang leader in the room suddenly sounded. Matt shook his still somewhat dizzy head, and he couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart after hearing the words of the gang leader. He didn't realize that this was a trap against him. When he easily went underground, he guessed at that time. But the voices of the kidnapped children echoed in his ears. How could he choose to escape? Bah! I sent away so many of my subordinates before, but today I can be regarded as having caught you, so I put his hood on me first. The gang leader ordered his subordinates with a fierce glare. Then a large hand removed Matt's hood. Matt's true face was exposed to the gangsters in the room. The gang leader stepped forward and said in a mocking tone, "So you look like this. I thought you were so fierce and evil that you could make my subordinates afraid when they heard your name. Heh, that can only mean that your subordinates are a bunch of waste, and you, as their boss, are even more waste of waste." Matt's words gave him a taste of suffering. Syllable. The gang leader slapped Matt in the face. "Damn, call me." Along with his order, countless fists and feet greeted Matt. The gang leader was sitting on the sofa quietly smoking and watching this scene, his face extremely proud and cheerful. Soon, Matt's face swelled to the point that outsiders would never recognize it. And those subordinates were also ordered to retreat at this moment by the gang leader. The gang leader smoked a cigarette and came to Matt again. He took a hard puff of the cigarette, and then burned the cigarette but hard onto Matt's closed right eye. A wail of pain instantly came out of Matt's throat. Countless blood streaks ran down his face, down his neck, countless torn wounds left his face close to disfigurement, and his burned right eye still had soot. At this time, Matt looked extremely miserable. But he never begged the gang leader for mercy. Hey, he's a tough guy, so Daredevil, you're trying to come here to save those kids, aren't you? Come, bring those kids. The gang leader waved his hand to his subordinates, and a moment later a group of children were brought to this room by each other. When the group of children saw Matt's face at this moment, they were all frightened, and some even cried. But then the gang leader slapped the crying child in the face. Whoever is crying for me, I will let you become like him. The words of the gang leader made the children suddenly afraid to speak up. And Matt's anger was high in his heart at this time, and he cursed angrily. Damn coward, you only dare to be angry with children, don't you? The gang leader was not angry, but turned around and smiled at Matt. Then he said, So, Daredevil, let's play a game. He pulled a revolver out of his pocket and unloaded only one of the bullets in it. Russian turntable, you know the rules, right? The gang leader said with a chuckle, close to Matt's ear. Fack. What do you want? Matt was so excited that he even drove the chair to shake, and the gangsters on the side quickly pressed him tightly. I bet with you for the lives of these children. I point a gun at one of the children, you say I will shoot a few shots. If you refuse me, I will kill a child now. How about it, do you accept my game? The anger in Matt's heart at this moment can't wait to turn into substance and devour the gang leader in front of him. The bruises on his neck burst out, and the wounds on his face were frantically spraying blood because he was too excited, and Matt was almost like going crazy at this time. Fack. I'll bet with you. Matt roared. Episode 58. The basement of the bar. Matt gasped, the bruises on his neck swelling from excessive force and anger, looking like bluish centipedes. His hands were extremely tight, and there was no trace of blood on the nails, as if he was about to break his hands in the next second. The gang leader in front of him shook the revolver in his hand with a smile. Then he pointed to a child in front of him. It was a young boy who looked to be just 4 or 5 years old, with a dirty dust on his face and fear in his eyes. He knew what that muzzle meant, and he had seen people here kill people with that muzzle. And now, the muzzle was pointed at him. Come on, Daredevil, I'm ready, you talk. The gang leader laughed wantonly. Matt tried his best to use his own perception to sense the position of the bullet in the revolver's magazine. But because of the previous flash bomb, he now has a serious internal injury to his ear. This makes his perception difficult. If I don't speak, I'm going to shoot now. Ah. Woo. The words of the gang leader caused the targeted boy to scream, followed by intermittent crying. Matt grabbed the floor tightly with his toes. If his eyes could be opened at this moment, then his eyes would be filled with the most terrifying killing intent. Enough, I said. Opened 2 shots. Matt's body tensed up when he said this. The gang leader smiled and then pulled the trigger. Duh. 2 consecutive empty sounds made Matt's tense body feel relieved, and he couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. But before he could relax more, the words of the gang leader sounded again. Okay, change one. With his words, the gangsters drove another small child into the middle. He replaced the previous child. Now, he is the new aiming target. It was also a boy, but he seemed to be younger than the boy just now. There was still some confusion in his eyes, as if he didn't know what the muzzle represented. Fack. Kill me. Matt couldn't help but roar. But all that answered him was the grinning words of the gang leader. This is not okay, you must finish this game with me, otherwise I will not leave any of these children. I swear, if I can get out of trouble, I will definitely make you feel what hell is. Ha 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 ha, Daredevil, don't you think that now you say this like a clown? How do you get out of trouble? Why do you make me feel hell? The unbridled and insolent laughter of the gang leader made the flame in Matt's heart even higher. Come on, say a few shots. Once again, the gang leader aimed his gun at the little boy in front of him. Matt struggled to sense the situation in the magazine, and although it was difficult, he could barely hear something. After some silence, he gritted his teeth and said, Take a shot. Duh. The revolver is once again empty. The gang leader's face showed a little dissatisfaction. He waved his hand for his men to take the little boy who had escaped death away, then came to Matt and said, I've heard before that Daredevil has extraordinary perception, so today I specially prepared a flash shock bomb to deal with you, and now it seems to have little effect. Can you still hear the sound of the revolver in my hand? The gang leader's words gave Matt a hint of unprecedented fear, and he gritted his teeth and said, What do you want? It's nothing, it just feels like your ability is a little too cheating. We want to be fair, don't we? The gang leader laughed, and then he asked his men to bring a small wooden stick. Now, let me make the game between us a little fairer, he said and stuck the stick into Matt's ear. He has a good grasp of the distance. That's enough to destroy Matt's ear without killing the other party. Eh. The tearing pain coming from inside his ear made Matt scream with the worst pain he had ever had. The sound made the children who were hiding on the side feel fear. A moment later, the gang leader pulls the stick out of Matt's ear. The tip of the stick was covered in blood and unknown fragments of body tissue. The gang leader tossed it aside casually, and then laughed. Okay, isn't it fairer now? You should still be able to hear me, right? Don't look at me like this. I studied medicine before, and the rupture of the eardrum does not make people deaf, but will greatly reduce hearing. At this time, Matt could no longer hear what the gang leader in front of him was saying. Blood kept flowing out from the depths of his ears. The world he heard at this time was a world full of buzzing and buzzing. His proud hearing disappeared. At this moment, Matt's heart was completely filled with despair. Episode 59. Well, the game goes on, Daredevil. With the words of the gang leader spoke. Once again, this basement became what it was before. The gang leader once again pointed a gun at the new child, his expression casual, and there was even a hint of a smile on his lips. But Matt fell into a completely different state than before. He struggled to support his body, blood flowing from the depths of his face and ears, and the voices of the outside world became hazy to him. He could only hear the word game from the gang leader. But he almost guessed the rest. He tried to listen to the revolver once again with his once proud perception. But the haze in his ears was a clear reminder to him. He was just a waste man close to the edge of deafness at this time. The gang leader looked at the silent Matt with dissatisfaction, and he gestured to his subordinates. The men came down to Matt and slapped Matt directly, and then shouted in Matt's ear. Daredevil, our boss let you talk. Matt heard it this time, but his voice was still extremely low compared to before. His lips trembled, as if he couldn't bear to say the next words. His chest was boiling, as if a volcano was erupting. Open. Fire a shot. Matt finally spoke. Losing his sense of hearing, he could only lodge everything on the ethereal goddess of fate. Duh. Once again, the revolver was empty. It seems that Matt's prayer played a role. The gang leader came to Matt's ear with great interest, and he shouted loudly. You won again, but let's see how many times the goddess of fate can help you. When I get to hell, I will definitely beg Satan to kill you. Matt is a devout Christian. But at this time, he chose to pray to the enemies of his faith. Matt at this moment turned his back on his faith. Ha, then I'll wait for you. Then a little girl was pushed up. It was a beautiful little girl even though her body was covered in dust. Long blonde hair, tender skin like milk, and eyes with tears. This time, the gang leader did not go to his original position to aim, but instead sat next to Matt. Woohoo, this time it's a very cute little girl. Oh, I remember her. My men killed her parents by the way when they stole her from her beautiful home. Now this little girl is crying in front of us. Ha, Daredevil, do you hear that? Oh yes, you can't hear it. The gang leader laughed loudly in Matt's ear. At this time, Matt's nails had already broken his hand, he clenched his teeth tightly, and the twisted expression on his face mixed with blood made him look like a demon crawling out of hell. Now let's say, how many shots to fire? The gang leader patted Matt, who breathed heavily and hard, and finally after a long silence, he trembled and said the words that would make him regret it for the rest of his life. Open. Shoot a shot. This time, the goddess of fate did not favor him again. Bang. The gun rang right in his ears. His hazy hearing became extremely clear at this moment, even clearer than his previous hearing. The sound of gunpowder hitting him was like a heavy hammer hitting his heart. No. The cry of pain could not change the girl's fallen body. At this moment, Matt's closed eyes actually shed blood and tears. His mouth also collapsed due to the exertion of his teeth, and blood oozed from his gums. Fack. Matt shook his bound body frantically, and even grinded out the blood stains of the dough. But Matt was still struggling violently as if he couldn't feel pain. The gang leader smiled. He patted Matt on the shoulder, and then said in Matt's ear. Now, the game is over, and you should die. When the words fell, the gang leader raised his pistol and aimed it at Matt's forehead. Bang! Gunfire rang out again. Matt's struggle was completely over. The gang leader looked at Matt, who had lost his life at this time, and sneered. Hang his body out for me tomorrow, and by the way, find me his relatives and friends, I will kill them all. Yes. With that, the gang leader threw down his pistol and walked out of the basement. The other subordinates also left here one after another. The remaining children were again confined to another room. In the blink of an eye, only Matt with his head hanging down was left in the basement. His blood flowed all over his body, and gradually a strange stone that he had hidden near his abdomen was also infected with blood. It was a stone that depicted the mark of some evil deity. Its name is Yellow Seal. The moment the blood completely wrapped the yellow seal, a yellow glimmer gradually emanated from it. Strange and sacred, evil and sublime. The aura of contradiction began to emerge from above the yellow seal. The next moment, Matt, who should have died, saw the great and indescribable great back again. This time, Matt didn't hesitate. He simply knelt on the ground, facing the back and making a sound like a beast in a roaring voice. Great King of Yellow, I am willing to offer everything I have to you. I want to be a believer in you for eternity and eternity. Give me the strength that belongs to you. The moment the sentence is spoken, the environment around Matt turned upside down, stars appeared here, they emitted an ancient and cold brilliance, the earth turned into a dark universe, the void supported Matt to kneel, and the figure who had been facing away from Matt finally turned around. At this moment, Matt clearly saw the front of the yellow-robed god. Under the hood was a dark and empty face, and he extended his hand to Matt. The breath of God swept through this land illuminated by the light of the stars. Immediately after, the light from the stars was concentrated on Matt, and it converged into a sea of light. And at this moment, in an unmanned basement, Matt, who was firmly tied to the chair, opened his eyes. Episode 60. Matt hadn't felt what it was like to see the world with his eyes in a long time. Since he lost his sight to an accident as a child, he has been observing the world with his senses and other senses. And now, his lost vision returned. When Matt opened his eyes, his first glimpse was the corpse of the girl lying on the ground in front of him. Thinking back to all the previous events, although Matt was angry in his heart at this moment, he did not immediately go to take revenge. Collapse. He easily broke the rope that bound him. Then he walked to the body of the little girl. He gently turned over the other person's body and held it in his arms. I'm sorry, it's my fault. Matt's tears dripped down the girl's face, but it couldn't wake up the girl's closed eyes. A moment later, Matt gently put the girl's body back on the ground, and he said gently, I'll be back soon. Then he stood up. At this time, the coagulated blood on his face showed traces washed by the previous tears. When the blood was washed away by the tears, what was revealed was Matt's intact skin. Feeling the surging power contained in his body, Matt strode towards the closed door. He was no longer in the mood to gently open the door. With a loud bang, the door was kicked flying by Matt. The gangsters in the next room heard the sound and immediately rushed out the door with their guns in hand. Then they saw a scene that made their pupils constrict. That Matt, who should have died, came back to life again. Don't panic, it's all Daredevil's trick, shoot. Shoot. The words of the gangster squad leader woke up the group of gangsters. They pulled the trigger hard. Countless bullets spewed tongues of fire towards Matt. If it were usual, Matt would definitely choose to dodge. But this time he didn't. He slammed on the ground with his feet, and his figure instantly rushed towards the gangsters in front of him. The bullet hit him with a clanging sound, as if it had hit some kind of metal. Before the gangsters could be shocked, the attack from Matt had penetrated their bodies. Poof. The continuous sound of flesh being penetrated made the gangster captain, who was deliberately left behind by Matt, extremely terrified. And when he looked at Matt, who was walking towards him with the blood of his arm, this small captain was even frightened and his legs were difficult to stand. Tell me, where's your boss? Matt's voice was calm, but there was an incomparably cold killing intent in those open eyes. Drinking in a bar. Very good, you are very cooperative. Matt's words made the squad leader plead as if he had seized some opportunity. I'm willing to go to jail, please don't kill me, I know, Daredevil has a principle of not killing. The squad leader's words made the corners of Matt's mouth pull a curve. He slowly put his hand in front of the squad leader's throat and said softly, I used to think that every criminal has the right to change themselves, and if they are given the opportunity, they will be rehabilitated. But now I know that some people simply do not deserve to give them a chance, because as long as they live more than one day, it is the greatest insult to innocent people. Crunch. Matt broke the neck of the squad leader in front of him. He randomly ripped a piece of black cloth from the other party's body and covered his head, and then laughed softly. The Daredevil of the past is no longer there, and now it is the evil who has returned from hell. Matt picked up the gun and slowly walked up the steps leading to the bar. When the gang members on the steps saw Matt, they were penetrated by Matt's palm before they could react. Then Matt followed the road to the back kitchen of the bar. The cooks froze when they saw him, but then Matt fired a shot into the ceiling. "Unrelated people, please get out of here." The chefs immediately fled the place at a quick pace. And in the bar in front, gunfire caused a riot among personnel, and a large number of civilians fled from here. In the blink of an eye, only the gang leader and his little brothers remained. "Fack. Go to the kitchen and see." The moment the gang leader said this, an iron door flew out instantly. It was kicked abruptly by a huge external force. And above the iron door, the English of the kitchen is obvious. Bang! When the iron door slammed into the floor, a figure that made the gang leader unbelievable came out of the kitchen. His body was covered with blood, and his hair was also soaked in blood into curls, but his eyes were calm to the extreme. However, if you look closely, you can see that there is endless anger and killing intent in those calm eyes. "Are you okay, guys? I came back from hell," Matt said in a calm tone. The corners of his mouth are slightly curved,